Does Xactimate pay enough money? I want to address that very, very hot topic. It seems like it's a hot topic in our industry real quick. I believe, and I realize that there's a lot of different schools of thought on this subject. But in short, my answer is absolutely, it definitely pays enough money. And I want to explain, I want to elaborate so that you understand what I'm talking about. Xactimate is, if you don't know, number one, is the software that is used by over 90% of the insurance companies. And maybe I'm off by 1% or 2. I haven't been tracking it in quite some time, but there's really only one other software program that I know of that they're really using is Stability. But Xactimate is used by over 9 out of 10 of the insurance adjusters out there that you're going to encounter. And so for that reason, me personally, I'm just one who really, you can choose to swim upstream or paddle upstream, so to speak, or you can choose to go with the flow, to go with the grain of traffic, to go with the stream, so to speak. And so me personally, I choose to go with the grain of traffic most of the time, right? Like I don't like a lot of friction in my process. So for me, I want to use what the insurance companies use, right? I find that most of my success comes when I'm actually working with the grain in this industry. So for me, I use Xactimate. And I believe, based on, over, say, 15 years of experience in using Xactimate, I find that Xactimate pays plenty. However, you have to know how to use Xactimate correctly. Now, I also want to qualify that statement, though, by saying that, you could be the best Xactimate estimate writer on the planet, but that still is not going to guarantee your success in this industry. Right? So it's part of it. You have to know how to write a good Xactimate estimate. You have to know how to use the software, but that's not going to be what's going to guarantee your success. I mean, in addition to knowing how to write an Xactimate estimate correctly, you also need to understand how to get the claim approved, right? And so to get it approved is not going to rely solely on your ability to write the estimate, but in addition to that, you're going to need some hardcore documentation, which, if you want to think about it like evidence. You're going to need evidence, proof, right, to back up your estimate. And so I like to think of it, everything in that estimate, right? I want to have some kind of documentation to back it up. Like I want to have real detailed footnotes. I want to have building code attachments that shows the code. I want to show first that the city or county and or state adoption and what codes they adopt, right? I want to have the actual codes that I'm referencing in the estimate attached to the estimate, and followed by the actual photographs that shows the actual damage and the items that I'm referring to, and any supporting items that I'm putting in the estimate, having photographs of those items. But I want you to think about something. I think why people think that Xactimate, some people are say, they say that Xactimate doesn't pay enough money. It's because they're used to seeing Xactimate estimates that are written by insurance adjusters, and they look at those estimates and they really break them down and sort of audit that paperwork, if you will. And it'll say stuff like paint, remove and replace, or paint the living room, for example, the ceiling. It'll say such and such per square foot, or the walls, such and such per square foot. And you look at that number and you know for a fact that it does not cover, your painters to go in there and to paint all those walls or to paint the whole ceiling. But the problem is not the unit price, in the paint. I mean, could it go up? You know, could it afford to go up? Sure. Maybe it should go up, right? But what I'm saying is, it's not like you have to look at it like that number, the per square foot number, is not the only thing that should be considered. So in my opinion, it's because the adjusters are leaving out the items, the appropriate number of items that need to be included in that estimate also. So instead of just paint the walls per square foot, right? Everything else that you're gonna need on that job, what else are the painters doing? Are they just painting only? I mean, if they're just painting only, then that estimate would be accurate. That would be correct, right? But if they're doing more than painting, i.e. masking the floor, and before they even get to that, you know, somebody's got to come in and move the contents out and then reset them, right? And mask the walls, perhaps. Like if you are painting the ceiling, then you're gonna have to mask the walls where the walls meet the ceiling to tape all the way around the room, right? I mean, if you're painting the ceiling, you're gonna have to detach and reset all the light fixtures on the ceiling, all of the HVAC registers, ceiling fans, anything else that's in the way, right? Not just painting the ceiling. I mean, if you're painting the walls, you're gonna also have to detach and reset like wall sconces and shelves and mirrors, and you know, if like you're in the bathroom, you gotta do like toilet paper holders and towel bars and towel rings and other things, right? And so it's not just paint the walls. You have to do other things, AC returns and thermostats and et cetera, right? If you're in an area where you have a high ceiling, then you have to be using high ceiling charges, and maybe you have to set up scaffolding and other things, right? So and you know, like for exterior, maybe you have to pressure clean it. Maybe you have to detach and reset shutters before you just paint the exterior, right? Maybe you have to detach and reset downspouts and house numbers and hose bibs and electrical outlets, right? And so those are things that need to be added in before just the paint, or in addition to just the paint by itself. And I think that if more people would have those supporting items in the estimate, then you're gonna see quickly that Xactimate actually does pay enough money. One other thing, and I've talked about this in a lot of my content. I know if you've watched me at all, then you've seen this, but it's not, if you're looking at, for example, you may have heard about the RFG versus DMO controversy in our industry, right? And if you have heard about it, or if you haven't heard about it, let me quickly give you some background on that. If you go in Xactimate, and if you were in, for example, like the drip edge item. So if you click on drip edge, you may know that you can choose to like remove only the drip edge, remove and replace the drip edge, replace only, install only, right? Detach and reset, right? And you could do any of one of those, or do R&R at the same time, right? Well, if you have it set on the R&R, then you'll see, if you click on item price next to, or I think it's unit price, to the right of the item, then it'll show you what it is assessing that what Xactimate is assessing that it should cost for the removal of that item, as well as the replacement. So those two are broken out, right? Well, it also shows you the trade that's set on those items, okay, like on the removal and on the replacement. You'll notice that on the replacement item, the trade that it categorizes that item as is RFG, which stands for roofing, okay? But if you look at the removal of that item, it's actually set at DMO, which stands for demolition. So, because that's how you do a roof, right? You send in a demolition team to remove the roof, and then you send them on their way, and then you send in the roofers, the roofing contractor, if you will, to come in and build the roof, right? Wrong. That's not how most people do it. You know, some people do in certain states, like where they have to have like a dry-in inspection, they have to come back later. So I can understand that. But that's not how it is in the majority of the country. Like here in Dallas, Texas, that's not how it is here, right? Like the roofers are the ones, generally speaking, that are coming in to remove all those items as well as replacing those items, all right? So here's the big significant point of value though, right? Is that you can actually change the item on the removal of that item, the trade, if you will. On the removal of that item, you can change it from the DMO to the RFG. The kicker is, if you do that, generally speaking, and this is kind of generally speaking, I think the average across the country from what I've seen, is if you change it, it will be about 3 times the difference. So in other words, you're going to take that number and times it by 3, generally speaking. I say generally speaking because I'm talking about not just the item for drip edge, but for every single other item in roofing. If you change any of those items, it's going to be generally speaking about 3 times the amount, close to 3 times the amount on the removal, right? Now, most people, when they think about this, they think about it in terms of RFG, and when they talk about it as RFG versus DMO, as if that's where all the problems lie. But that's not where all the problems lie. That's where some of the problems lie. The reality is, if you look at anything in Xactimate, all of the prices in Xactimate are wrong. So in other words, all of the trades, if you look in DRY for drywall, it is, the removal is incorrect. It's all DMO. If you look at like FCC for carpeting, it's incorrect. If you look at FCW for laminate and wood flooring, it's all incorrect. If you look at SDG for siding, it's all set at DMO and it's incorrect, and all of it can be modified and changed manually to make it to its correct trade, which is generally speaking going to be on average about 3 times the amount. Now, does that mean you're going to get it approved? Absolutely not. You're going to have to see more of my videos on how to get that approved, right? But I point that out because if you follow some of my advice on how to do that in those other videos and some of my other content, because I've talked about it quite openly, and I have whole lessons on it in my training course at iescertified.com. But if you apply those principles to get it approved, then your Xactimate, the Xactimate estimate that you're used to seeing from normal adjusters, as compared to the way you would now write it when you write it correctly across the board and you include all the necessary items that you're really supposed to include and write them with the correct trade, I think you'll find that Xactimate actually pays a lot more than many would think. Okay, so now there is another school of thought though, like other folks that use Xactimate, and maybe they come up with this conclusion at the end, is because they put a lot of items in the estimate that are not unreasonable. Okay, I'm not saying they're unreasonable, but they're items that come across and send up red flags to the insurance companies as unreasonable. Like, for example, putting in a temporary toilet on a little residential roof job, right? That's not something that is like, you should expect to see resistance on that. Now, you can make a case to me that, yeah, it's needed and all of that. Okay, I won't argue with you there. I'm just saying that you're gonna see friction, and that might be the thing that delays all of these other items on the estimate that wouldn't normally see resistance, right? And so you have to learn what those items are. One little hint of mine, and this is just, hey, this is not about me telling you the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things. This is always, and all of my content's the same, all my training events the same, is that this is just me sharing with you what I do, okay? Like, this is me just opening up my hood and sharing with you what I do. And, that is like a little hint for all of y'all out there. OSHA, right? OSHA, I believe, of course, absolutely, we have to comply with OSHA, right? With everything to do with OSHA. Everybody's got to comply with everything OSHA. I understand that. I'll be the first to tell you that, right? However, when writing it up in an Xactimate estimate, I find that so many folks will write all of these OSHA items into their estimate, which, by the way, that's fine. You know, if those items are required, that's fine. But a little tip for you, just don't say the word OSHA. And people always ask me, why? That doesn't make any sense, you know, because I'm always about, you know, you have to comply with all building codes, right? And so for me to say, not to put the word OSHA in there, that's like, you know, antithetical to what I always talk about with building codes, right? So it's not that. It's just that with OSHA, for whatever reason, it just tends to send up red flags with these insurance companies. I don't know why. But when they see you put in OSHA, they're like, oh man, this is one of those guys, right? And so like if you have to build scaffolding all the way around because of something OSHA, then put it in there. Put the items for scaffolding and put in for safety and to comply with you know, local ordinance and laws and things like that, right? Because I would make a case to you that building codes, you know, to comply with building codes, you have to comply with OSHA, right? So anyway, so it's not though to open up that proverbial can of worms, so to speak. I would just say put everything, including, you know, with your OSHA items in there, but just don't say the word OSHA, all right? See how that works for you. Let me know. I would like to hear. I mean, comment below and tell me your thoughts on what I'm talking about, right? One final thing, there's another school of thought that says, look, you don't have to use Xactimate. All you need to do is just put your price on a piece of paper, and that's all that's needed. You force them to pay that price. Maybe, right? And I know that there is some legitimacy to that strategy, that method, right? However, again, everything that I do is all about looking at it through the eyes of a contractor, okay? And so I always go about it to try to win in the contractor lane, right? So to exhaust all options that are available to the contractor in the contractor lane and win without having to resort to getting a public adjuster involved, without having to resort to invoking appraisal, and without having to resort to litigation, right? And so I try, you know, because by the way, if you can win in the contractor lane, then you can do so much more effectively and quicker. Okay, so for me, time is money. So, you know, if you can get a claim approved at a much higher number, but it takes you 9 to 12 months to do, or even 4 to 6 months, then you have to realize that the extra profit you're making from that additional revenue, has to stretch out over all those months. And, you know, time is money. But also, you have to be thinking about the client. You should be thinking about the client first, the property owner, right? They should be number one in everything that you do. That's just my opinion, right? I think so many times we leave that part of it out. And so, you know, if we're thinking about the property owner, then we're also understanding that the property owner, you know, has an interest in getting it done quickly and effectively, efficiently, right? And so for me, that's what I want to do, is win in the contractor lane. And so I'm not saying that those methods are wrong, but I think that you're going to have to resort to appraisals, litigation, and you have to use public adjusters if you use the method of just writing your number down on a paper and saying they have to approve it. And, you know, for not knocking the people that are teaching that method and preaching that way, not knocking those guys. A lot of those people are my friends, right? Guys and gals, not knocking them. But I would have to ask, for those who are giving that advice, what do they do for a living? Are they contractors, or are they appraisers? Are they litigators? Are they public adjusters, right? If they are contractors, do they do it themselves and win themselves? Or do they resort to those third parties? So I just think that you should, when evaluating, as far as what to do, what not to do, you should be thinking of those things. Just my opinion. But at any rate, happy Monday, happy beginning of March 2020. If you haven't noticed, I have new glasses. So yeah, these are my first glasses ever. I've been not able to see too well in these last couple of months, and I didn't even realize it myself, and it just sort of crept up on me, and then finally got that taken care of, and wow, I can actually see. I have the progressive glasses where it's like 1, 2, and 3, and I'm kind of getting used to that idea. So anyway, here in the office at the Realm Castle Hills in the Colony, Texas, Castle Hills area. Driving the ship here, Precision General Contractors, and I hope all you fellow practitioners are killing it today. Getting ready for a powerful month. Spring is coming, and if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you know what that means. It's getting ready to heat up. That time of year is getting ready to happen. Storm season. Hope you're ready. If you're not, better get ready.